We're going to begin this morning talking about God. Let's talk about God. For as we've been moving through our back to basics, unity principles, we've talked a lot about God. The first one, God is. There's only one presence and one power acting as my life and as the universe, God the good, omnipotent. And then the second principle, I am. As there is only one presence and one power, everywhere present, essentially good, I am essentially good. And everyone else is essentially good. And then our third principle, I create. I create the reality of my world through my thoughts. And when I focus my thoughts on the first and second principle, there's only one presence and one power everywhere, and that power is good, I am able to walk through life with greater ease. And the fourth principle, I pray and I meditate. It's all about God. So let's expand our vocabulary, for there are those who have a problem with simply the word God. The word God. And remember, we honor all names and all paths to God. So we might hold God as love, divine love, universal love, light, divine light, universal light. We might hold God as Mother, Father, God, Mother, Father, everything God. I love that one. God, all that is. Whatever term we use for God. John Shelby Spong, who's a contemporary, he's in his 90s now. He was a bishop in the Episcopal Church, very liberal theologian, author, professor, and friend to unity. He states that we walk into the mystery of God. We do not define that mystery. We also don't need to define that word, for it's an essence. It's beyond explanation. It's beyond definition. But we do our best for a word, a phrase, an idea, an essence that works for us. You'll hear me sometimes refer to spirit or precious spirit. So God today is shorthand. It's a sacred, personal, reverent shorthand for everything else, for all that is that we call God. And we've been looking at these first four unity principles that I've just summarized. And those are all practicing us. These are all preparing us to shift our consciousness, to shift our awareness into that one presence and one power everywhere, within all, and to live from that awareness. The first four principles are helping us to move into that space. And the fifth principle is about putting it to action, putting those principles, those practices into action. And I believe we may have a slide. Here it is. Knowing and understanding these spiritual truths is not enough. We must live the truth we know. To the best of our understanding, we must live the truth we know. You will hear me often say, live out loud. Live out loud. Well, what does that mean? It means to love out loud, to love boldly, freely, and with our whole selves. It's not always easy to love boldly and freely with our whole self. And when we do that, we inspire others to do the same. We know that's true because we've been on the other side of that equation, where we have seen someone love so generously that it inspires us to open our hearts and to do the same. Or maybe we've even just read about someone who is taking such bold action and opening their hearts that it encourages us. We want to do that too. Maybe not exactly the same way, but it creates that energy. It creates that field of possibility, of potentiality. If they can do it, I can do it. Look at what they've been through and look at how they are in the world, and I can do that too, and I want to be that person. I want to express that in the world. And that the way we inspire others cannot be underrated. For we're here, all of us, to serve one another, to love one another, and inspiring one another is part of that. And so this fifth unity principle is first about being. It's our beingness. It's how we show up in our world. It's how we show up in our family. Are we the dark cloud that comes to the family reunion or the dinner or the conversation? Are we the light? Are we the love? How do we show up at work with the people at work? Are we the one complaining about everything, or are we the one holding that space of possibility and being loving? How are we in our community? How are we here at church? How are we in our world? So it's first about the how. Beingness. It's first about the beingness. And the goal is to live consciously through awareness. Embracing those first four unity principles. Embracing them. And then when we do so, when we take action, it is guided from that Christ presence within us. It is guided from the divine within us, whatever action we take. Knowing we are still human and we may express imperfectly. We're human. So even when we're divinely guided into action, we recognize that it may express in the manifest imperfectly. And that's what we have here. We have this beautiful community based on prayer and meditation and these principles and all the prayers that have been said before us, standing on the shoulders of all those that have been here before us, in that essence, in that energy, giving us a space, a place to practice the tools that we hear about, that we read about. To live and move and have our being coming from that consciousness of the Christ, that consciousness of love. And yet we're still going to stub our toes. We create a safe space to do that. We don't step back and go, oh, Harry did it again. He was trying to do the right thing. No, we don't. We hold up the mirror for one another of each of yours divinity, your light, your love, no matter what's going on out here. We hold that light up of seeing the perfection as imperfectly as you or I might express. We hold the mirror of the divinity so that we can grow, so that we can change, so that we can change our mind. Through our minds, we change our beliefs, change our words, change our actions. We continue to hold that mirror up because we remember, then we forget. Then we remember, and then we try to do better. And we are here to love and support one another in that process, for it is a process. When we're living these truth principles, any and all action will come from that Christ presence, the awareness of the oneness of spirit. And what we're doing is we're trying to train our ego to be in service to the soul. Train our ego to be in service to the soul. How many of y'all have an ego? Oh yeah, we all have an ego. And I read this awesome article this week. You know how I love clever titles, even though I seem unable to actually come up with them myself. I love clever titles. And the name of this article was, "The Frontal Cortex is an Egomaniac." The frontal cortex is an egomaniac. And it went on to say some of the things that we all know, that our frontal cortex is our center for control and safety. That's right. Closely related with our ego, interwoven, control and safety. And when that is threatened, it can result in aggression when we're coming from our frontal cortex. And you may be thinking, that sounds a little familiar about what's going on around me. Have you heard that? It's like, what's going on out there? Why are people so aggressive these days? Well, have we felt like we were in control of this pandemic? I haven't. Have I felt safe all the time? No. And so you can see where we are ripe for coming from our frontal cortex. Whereas when we are not feeling that way, where we feel like we're in control of our lives, when we are safe, we laugh at our ego. We're like, that's cute. Now let me show you who's boss. I'm going to come from the Christ consciousness. And we do that. But who isn't stressed right now? We're going into, what is this, the 17th month? Back in March a year ago, we would have never thought that. And it's a good thing no one told us, because we had to gradually get into that, and stock up on enough toilet paper that we were comfortable and move forward. So we've had the pandemic, which has resulted in forced isolation, so we've not been able to connect with friends and family as much as we've wanted to. It may have resulted in loss of income and loss of job. It may have resulted in what we call COVID-19, those 19 pounds or more that we added while we were in isolation, putting another stressor in our life. We may also have on top of that injury, illness, pain, that if we look at ourselves, if you can imagine yourself 2 years ago compared to today, could you handle stress better 2 years ago? For most of us, for me, it's a definite yes. Now for others, there may be a combination of things that no, right now they can actually handle stress better. But for many of us, we look and we go, oh my goodness, I would love to be my 2 years ago self. The losses that we have endured and continue to endure is really a tribute to our strength. And at the same time, recognize and acknowledge the stressor it has put on each one of us. Each one of us. I know I find myself, I had a situation this week where I found myself in tears. And I asked myself, what is going on with that? That 2 years ago would have been, oh, okay, this too shall pass. We find that our emotions are sometimes just so churned up with all these stressors. And so we recognize that's what is going on. And we are more gentle with ourselves in shifting our awareness. For we recognize that on top of a worldwide medical crisis, there is also in this race consciousness, which is the consciousness of the human race, additional stressors that have been placed and is affecting every one of us on some level. That is what is happening in our world right now. Remember the series we did on accepting the world just as it is? Those are steps that we take that ease the stress and allow us to step into our spiritual truth. Now this fifth unity principle, this gives us the steps that we need to move our ego to be in service to our soul. What does that mean? The soul is a combination of our consciousness and our subconsciousness. It's our Christ consciousness that is deeper than our awareness. It goes deeper than our own awareness. That's the soul. And we want our ego to be in service to our higher self, rather than decide it's going to, frontal cortex, move from that space. We want it to serve us. We don't reject our ego. We need it. We need it to survive. We need it to see danger, real danger. And so we want to move it into service of our soul. For life is consciousness. All of life is consciousness first. So we take action as we are inspired from that consciousness, that Christ consciousness, that soul being. We take action from that place. This morning we're looking at scripture. We're looking at 1 John, the 3rd chapter. Little children, let us not love only in word or speech, but in deed and truth. By this we shall know that we are of truth and reassure our hearts. Little children, let us not love only in word or deed or speech, but in deed and in truth. By this we shall know that we are of the truth and reassure our hearts. Okay, deeds. I know what you're thinking. What do we have to do? You're getting a little suspicious of me now. What do we have to do? What is the deed that we need to do? What are we being guided here to do? Do I need to give up or sell all my possessions and give it to the needy or give it to the church? Do I need to set up a not-for-profit for a cause that is dear to me? Do I need to educate the masses about how to be kinder to our planet? Absolutely yes. If you are inspired to do any of all of those things, go for it. And then we look at our way shower, the shower of the way, Jesus Christ. Not what would Jesus do, but what did Jesus do? Jesus loved. He loved everyone. He accepted everyone. He was criticized for those that he ate with and held in his circle and traveled with. He loved everyone, and he taught us to do the same. That is where we want to live and move and have our being, is in this essence of love. We are to love boldly, freely, and fully. You know BFF. You've heard of that, best friend forever. Well, now you have a new BFF. We are all to love boldly, freely, and fully. Absolutely. That is our new BFF. And how that is going to manifest in our world is going to be different and unique and glorious for every one of us. It's not going to outpicture the same way. We are all unique expressions of the divine. So how we do that is dependent upon us and only as we can. For this, my friends, is exactly why we are here at this time in history and why we are here on this place on the planet, is to love one another fully, boldly, fully, freely, as only you can. Now let's just hold that in our hearts for a moment. That realization that that is uniquely yours to do. Hold that in your heart for a moment. Thank you. Today is also the kickoff of an action by Unity of the Keys. We are in action of this in support of our vision. We see humanity awake to its divinity, fully experiencing love, peace, and abundance. You received one of these little affirmations when you came in. If not, you can get one on your way out. But this is an affirmation that we're using today, and we're going to be continuing to use because we want to invite people. How can we see humanity awake to its divinity if people don't know they're divine? And so we're going to have this awesome Friendship Sunday on September 19th. And it's going to be a Friendship Sunday like I have never experienced. For we've got a 5-week preparation. Each week we are preparing the church and we are preparing our consciousness to see this sanctuary full. We are preparing the church and our consciousness to seeing this sanctuary full. And so each week, after the talk, we're going to see a short video, have a short meditation, and hold that throughout the week. So today, let's hold this affirmation in our hands and in our heart as we watch this short video.
Here's a few reasons why people don't go to church.
I can't come to church until I get my life together.
Church is how I got my life together.
Church is filled with a bunch of hypocrites.
And there's always room for one more.
All they care about is your money.
They care about me, not about my money.
Is there some kind of dress code?
Yes, the code is wear some clothes.
Church, it just makes me nervous.
I was nervous at first, and then I felt right at home.
I'm not sure I believe everything that you believe.
But you can still belong.
Church is for wimpy, girly men.
You want to say that again?
If you knew me and what I've done, you wouldn't want me.
If you knew me and what I've done, you wouldn't be worried.
You can come to my church even if you were brought up Catholic,
Baptist,
Methodist,
Jewish,
Mormon,
Lutheran,
Pentecostal,
Presbyterian,
Church of Christ,
Southern Baptist.
a little bit of everything and a whole lot of nothing.
See, it's not about a religion, it's about a relationship.
So please, come to my church.
Where nobody's perfect,
Where beginners are welcome.
where socks are optional.
but grace is required.
Where forgiveness is offered.
Where hope is alive.
and where it's okay to not be okay. Really.
Awesome. And so I invite you now to simply close your eyes. Close your eyes. And envision. Think about who you would like to have sitting next to you at church. Who does not come to Unity already? Who would you just love to have sitting next to you, to laugh with, to whisper about the lesson, to talk about the practices that you've used, the tools? Who would you just love to have sitting next to you? And now that face or that name, whatever came to you, hold that vision this week. And know that you are blessing them. Know that you are blessing them simply by holding the intention that you would love to have them sitting next to you in your home church. Hold that in your heart. Hold that in your mind this week. And together we say, and so it is. And so it is. Amen.